Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today we have an election prediction between Senator Bernie Sanders, the most popular senator in the United States from the state of Vermont. We all remember him from 2016 and current events now, of course, against the incumbent president Donald Trump. So we're looking at our electoral map. We're going to be using the poll closing format starting at 7 p.m. in Indiana, Kentucky, and finishing off in Alaska, and then filling in swing states. So let me turn off the volume there, my bad. But Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, these states would easily go to the president. So we're just diving right into the video here. Bernie Sanders, I'm going to see a lot of comments of people saying America would never vote for a socialist or things like that. But keep in mind, in 2016, they almost did vote for him, number one. And yes, it was the Democratic Party, but he was also polling very well. And if he was a socialist at the time, he should have been losing those polls by double digits, yet he was somehow winning them. And yes, of course, they would narrow down, reaching a general election, and there wasn't much known about him. So I guess you can factor that in too. But he's still pretty popular nationwide, being what many people would call a socialist. Yes, he has proclaimed himself a socialist before. I definitely think that would come back and haunt him if he did run for the presidential election. But right now, where it stands, I do think that he has a really good standing at the presidential election. He's one of the stronger candidates coming from the progressive wing. There's not many Democrats who could actually win in 2020 at this point in time, which seems pretty crazy considering the president's disapproval rating nationwide. But it's also hard for the Democrats to win in elections. They sometimes do mess up, and like they did in 2016, they don't always field the right candidate. They have very few candidates who could actually win against Trump, because Donald Trump has a phenomenal way of campaigning, and I don't think the Democratic Party has fully realized that yet, and it's definitely going to make an impact on the 2018 midterms. But midterm elections are not presidential election years. So speaking of presidential election years, Virginia does go blue, Vermont goes blue, of course, Bernie Sanders' home state, and then Georgia I would classify as a toss-up for right now. 7:30 rolls around, West Virginia goes to Trump. Ohio and North Carolina are too close to call at this moment in time. And then 8 p.m. rolls around. We know a number of these states are this is probably the more partisan calls that we can make right now, because this is the poll closing with a number of safe Republican or safe Democratic states. Pennsylvania and Florida, as usual, would be tossed up. New Hampshire, my bad, I do see going to Bernie Sanders. All of Maine, except for that second district, I would consider a toss-up for right now. And then we move over to 8:30. Arkansas rolls around. Boom. Donald Trump wins the state of Arkansas. 6 electoral votes. Wow. Well, now we have 82 electoral votes for Donald Trump and 95 for Bernie Sanders. So we're looking at the map here. It looks a little bit more of a trend towards the Democratic Party, with New Hampshire already filled in blue. All of Maine already filled in blue. But there are a number of states that we still have to go through. So 9 p.m. rolls around. Louisiana goes to Trump. Texas goes to Trump, pushes him over Bernie Sanders. Kansas, Nebraska, except for that second district, as usual, goes into the toss-up column. South Dakota, North Dakota, and Wyoming go to Donald Trump, putting him at 147 electoral votes. As for Bernie Sanders, New York goes to him, pushing him up a little bit. Arizona becomes a toss-up state. New Mexico and Colorado go into the Sanders column, along with the state of Minnesota. And the state of Minnesota would go to Bernie Sanders. I definitely do see him carrying a number of more voters, I guess, than Hillary Clinton did, especially in the Rust Belt. Bernie Sanders would do much better than Hillary Clinton. He actually focuses on them. He pays attention to a number of voters. If you look at his, I believe it was a town hall in the state of West Virginia, he could have easily convinced a number of those Trump voters to vote for him, just based off the way that he seemed like he cared for the people. The way that he was able to give his message and have campaign rallies and things like that. A number of factors would show that Bernie Sanders would do better than Hillary Clinton in the Rust Belt. And it doesn't take much for a Democrat to do better than her. They just really need to focus on it. Pennsylvania was only one of those states where the Democratic Party actually focused on a lot and still lost. So clearly Donald Trump did something phenomenal on the terms of the Republican Party by flipping those 3 states, but it was still by a close margin. If the Democrats are able to outperform even by 1% in all 3 of the states, Donald Trump loses the states. Keep that in mind. But we're not going to fill in the states just yet. We still have to go into the 10 p.m. poll closings. Utah, Montana. Those 2 states obviously would go to Donald Trump. We really don't see a possibility of them flipping to the Democratic Party unless there's a third-party candidate in Utah, and even then, Donald Trump would probably still win. Iowa would become a toss-up race. Nevada, I would consider a toss-up at this moment in time, even though it was a Clinton state. Idaho goes into the Trump column. Washington, Oregon, California, I just mentioned that we're reaching 11 p.m., and then we finish off at 1 a.m., where Donald Trump wins Alaska. But this puts Bernie Sanders at 226 electoral votes and 163 for Donald Trump. So we have 149 contested electoral votes. Where are we going to find a number of these races that go to the president and the ones that go to Bernie Sanders? So at this point, we don't really see a possibility of Bernie Sanders winning in Arizona it could get a little bit closer than you might expect, but Arizona ultimately would likely go to the Republican column. As for the state of Georgia, that one also would likely stay in the Republican column. Hillary Clinton couldn't win it, Barack Obama couldn't win it, Al Gore couldn't, John Kerry couldn't, and Bill Clinton only did it one time for each state in different presidential election years. So these two states, typically Republican states, even though they could get closer, we're not going to see Bernie Sanders being able to excite the African-American base as someone like Barack Obama could. But he definitely could gain on white voters and independent voters, which is something that the Democratic Party really needs to do if they want to win any future elections. So 122 electoral votes, currently, I guess, too close to call. The Rust Belt. The Rust Belt, I am comfortable enough to land in the Democratic column for right now. And that puts Bernie Sanders over the top at 272 electoral votes. And it seems pretty interesting that the Rust Belt's called right now. I mean, Bernie Sanders would definitely outperform Hillary Clinton. And I do think he would outperform her by 2 to 3%, possibly, ranging from 1 to 5%, I guess. I don't see him winning by double digits like Obama did in 2008 because that was a special case. We were coming back from the economy in shambles. Barack Obama came in as this first African-American candidate and did phenomenal. Then he was able to turn around a number of these voters. You can't really compare what Hillary Clinton did to what Obama did because he was a special type of candidate. Granted, she was as well, but he wasn't as scandal prone and he wasn't messing up the same way she was as a political candidate. He had no major gaffes in his entire 2008 election season except for maybe once, compared to Hillary Clinton, where there were countless times where she was on the national news media, not for good things. And we have 76 electoral votes, currently too close to call, but right now Bernie Sanders has been elected president. We're looking at this map. Right now, Nebraska's 2nd district. I trust enough to go to the Bernie Sanders column before I would characterize this race as going to Bernie Sanders. I still believe this. Nebraska, I think with his Midwestern appeal, being able to definitely corral a number of voters. Yes, Nebraska did get close before in 2016 compared to 2012. So Bernie Sanders could likely outperform Hillary Clinton, especially in an area where he does really well in, and flip that 2nd district, as Obama was able to do in 2008. Nevada is a Clinton state from 2016. We really don't see a possibility of Trump winning there right now, especially against someone like Bernie Sanders. And Maine's 2nd district, Bernie Sanders, I definitely think would be able to resonate with Maine voters better than Donald Trump would. Even though Hillary Clinton couldn't do it, Bernie Sanders is no Hillary Clinton in terms of being able to appeal. We have 280 electoral votes for Bernie Sanders, 190 for Donald Trump. So where do the rest of the votes go? Well, Ohio, I actually see this one as going to Donald Trump. Before, I would characterize this as a Sanders state. I was fluctuating between Iowa or Ohio and sometimes both. But right now, I see Ohio going to the Republican column, mainly because Trump's approval rating isn't as bad as it was when I made my previous video in the state of Ohio. It has gone up. Trump won here by 8%. Bernie Sanders definitely could make this close. I think this would be called as one of the later races, 1 to 2%, or even 0.1 to 1%. But still, I think at the end of the day, it will narrowly land in the Trump column. North Carolina, I should have filled this one in before. This is a lean red state every election season. So right now, North Carolina, I see is going to the president, even though Bernie Sanders could do well. Something drastic would have to happen in order for a number of these states to flip, like Georgia, Arizona, North Carolina, and Ohio all at once. It would probably be something with the economy, but the economy isn't at the worst standing right now. In fact, it's actually pretty good. But still, Bernie Sanders is a type of candidate who could actually win against he's not a popular incumbent, but I think he could win against a popular incumbent. And Donald Trump is not really a popular incumbent per se. His approval rating, I believe, 43.3% according to Real Clear Politics, and that's I guess good numbers in my opinion. 538 usually estimates the amount of discrepancy in a poll and puts their real numbers, their adjusted poll numbers, which typically do not favor the president, because sometimes polls like Rasmussen or NBC polls either overestimate the president or underestimate the president, so sometimes they have to adjust for that. But overall, I believe the average there is lower than the average for Real Clear Politics. But moving on, Iowa is still going to go to the Trump column. If Ohio is going to Trump, Iowa would likely go to Trump. There is a very big argument that, if Iowa, goes, Ohio goes. Yes, that stands true. But also it could stand true in the opposite way. Not just for the Democratic Party, but I do think that Donald Trump would likely carry the state of Iowa and Ohio by very, 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 very narrow margins. But where we're standing today with the president's approval rating, with the economy, I do think he could narrowly edge out those states. But Florida, I see narrowly landing in the Sanders column, and I've been saying narrowly a lot because this race will not be some big blowout for either political candidate. Keep that in mind. We have become so partisan that even if there is, I'm going to make a video about this probably tomorrow, if there is a depression, not a recession, that is something horrible. But if a Great Depression happens, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, these states probably aren't going to flip. towards the Democratic Party. They're probably going to remain in the Republican column, even if it is by a narrow margin, because when there was last a Great Depression, almost every state flipped. Okay? We're looking at the map now. People have gotten so partisan that either political party could do whatever they wanted, and they would still be able to vote for them. Same goes for Republicans and Democrats. So, like states like, if we did have a Democratic incumbent, Great Depression happened, states like Massachusetts or California probably wouldn't go red, even though there was a very, very bad reason that this person, something must have gone extremely wrong. But that's not the topic of the video. We finish off our electoral map, 309 electoral votes with the whole new Democratic factors coming out of Florida. Yeah, I get it. There are a number of Republican factors too, but right now it seems like the state of Florida currently, it does approve of the president. Okay, his approval rating is lower in Ohio and Iowa than Florida, but that's not just it. Florida has a number of new Puerto Rican voters who definitely may alter the 2018 Senate results. I do think that they're going to come out and vote. I don't think it's going to be life-changing for the state of Florida, as in like terms of electoral, the way that they're rated on the Cook PVI or anything. But still, I do think they would make an impact. And when it comes down to close races, every little thing that favors either the Democratic Party or Republican Party, and I do think more things favor the Democratic Party as of right now, could impact them in a positive way, considering that Trump won the state by less than 5%. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.